What do you got, Coach? 3 things that all coaches need. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of coaches?
New York or the Aces? Definitely going with the Aces.
All right, 4th down. Who has the tougher job, coaches or officials? If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? But Texas is different. Welcome back, everybody. Got a little holiday edition for you, recording during the holidays. This is the Coaches Co-op, a masterclass in athletic leadership where coaches connect, grow, and share the grind. I'm Michael Prejean. Most of you know me as Coach P. Each week, I have the opportunity to team up with coaches across the country to break down the wins, the lessons, and everything in between. Today, I'm joined by Coach Nick Kadudi, head football coach and athletic director at the Klein High School. For those of y'all who don't know, AKA the Mothership, Nick's journey includes professional football, college football, and building high school programs rooted in discipline, clarity, and alignment. He's known for developing systems that simplify teaching, empower coaches, and help players execute with confidence. Those of you who are tuning in this morning with your real hands and with your virtual hands, I need y'all to welcome Coach Nick Kadudi. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Hey, I love the professional intro, man. You're on top of this stuff, dude.
Hey, we gotta make it do what it do, Coach. All right, check this out. Diving right in. This segment is called Talk That Talk. So before we break down leadership and systems, I want you to talk that talk. What's going right now at Klein High School, across your athletic department, and in the Klein community? Coach Kadudi, I need you to talk that talk.
What's going right? Well, I mean, honestly, it's there's a cultural shift and change. We came in, marketed this place as the Mothership, and it's taken off. And so the idea of marketing something and building an identity has been one of the best things that we've done here. And I think what's really exciting for us is watching the community, watching the parents, watching the businesses in the area, watching the school, right? Even when you get into a pep rally, seeing kids wearing the Mothership shirts and things like that. This is the stuff that, when you talk about, what's going right, that's the fun. That's the fun. Watching things change for the better and watching how people take to your vision. That's what's been going well. The next best thing I tell you is this: every day is a holiday, every meal is a picnic. And that's what we do here at the Mothership.
That's good stuff. So I got a follow-up question I want to ask, but let me ask a selfish question first. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm a former Klein ISD employee. I did not work at the Mothership, but my wife is a graduate of the Klein High School. Okay.
Hey.
So my selfish question is, can I get a Mothership shirt?
Man, you tell me what size and you give me an address and I'll ship it right to you, buddy.
Oh man.
Bag
What? There it is. There it is. I'm going to be rocking the Mothership real soon, y'all. Okay. So where do you see the buy-in? Where do you see it showing up the most?
Really, I think, when you talk about buy-in, it's about, seeing people holding a standard to certain things. I think, when you talk about the community, it's the buy-in when it comes to, the standard of showing up, showing out, doing the right thing, helping us out. For us, I'll give you an example. We sold, I think it was like $120,000 worth of merchandise since April. So, people are buying into that vision. And so that's kind of one of those things when you talk about people are doing the things that they talk about doing, they actually have action behind it. The next thing is, kids wearing the Mothership shirts around and there was I'll tell you, there's something really interesting. The superintendent was telling me they had a leadership council with multiple kids from the schools right inside of her meeting with those kids. And one of the things that they had to write about was what they're most proud of of their school. And when they put the Mothership and they put my name on it, it made me feel like, okay, we're doing the right thing. That's what you're talking about when you're seeing changes. These kids are buying into your vision and understand, hey, that you really do care about what's going on and what they're doing. So that's what's been fun.
Listen, if for those of you who may have missed that, so my question was, where do you see the buy-in? Listen, you should see it everywhere, because 120K in Mothership merch sales, that says a lot. Like seriously, coach, that says a lot. So what's something that maybe the outsiders have missed when it comes to Klein High School and the rebrand?
I think, when I took the job, the one thing that I always knew was, when I was on the north side of Houston for those 4 years and I was a tomball, I always knew that Klein had this, aura about it. It is the original. It's the Klein High. And so for me, it was, okay, can we keep the kids here? Can we get the people excited about being the original, right? I've heard people call about the flagship, things like that. But for us, it was the Mothership. It was the original. It was the standard. It was the one that without us, those don't exist. And so, when you talk to people and what you might miss is, a lot of people, find it gimmicky and things like that. But what I find is it's the same conversation I have with everybody else. You know what the Mothership is? Oh, yeah, it's Klein. Ha, ha, ha. You know what Klein High is. I've got you talking about Klein High. So as gimmicky as it might seem at times, there's a reason for it. And there's a reason we just slam it everywhere, right? It's this ridiculous amount of, of buy-in that you get. And it's the people need to understand that just because it sounds kind of cheesy doesn't mean that there's a bigger meaning behind it. And it's about finding something that you can belong to and back up. You know what I mean?
That's real. That's real. Brand recognition is real. All right, coach, let's take it back. Go all the way back. Of course, you're from high school, played college ball, but I want to go back a little bit further than that. So young Nick Kadudi is a ball player. Did young Nick know he wanted to be a coach?
Young Nick had no clue, brother.
Okay.
I actually have an undergrad in biochemical engineering. So everyone in my family is engineers. Yeah. So, I just looked the meathead part, I guess you could say. I didn't know that I wanted to be a coach, brother, until I was in college and I hit a dark spot in my life. And, I had a coach who had built a relationship with me, who had developed something with me that was, deeper than a game of football. And he actually ended up saving my life one day. And from that day forward, I always knew, like, there was this moment in my life, I have to be able to repay that to somebody else, and for me, that's why I'm so adamant about taking care of my people, about having a relationship with kids, about my circle and how important it is, because you never know the impact you could have on somebody. I think at that point in time is when I knew I loved it. I always loved the game, but it's about the relationships, about, hanging out with these kids and getting to know them on their different lives, getting invited to a wedding, man. I can't even tell you how awesome that feeling is when you get that wedding call, or you're even a groomsman in a wedding. That tells you had a relationship. So
that's good stuff, man. From a family of engineers, actually studied biochemical engineering. So what I'm gonna tell you, this is what I love about that, coach. So having studied something outside of education, of course you played ball, right? But I think that gives you a different look at how the game works. And this is not really an X's and O's podcast. This is really about athletic leadership. But I kind of had this question where I wanted to talk about your wide shoot system, but let's go ahead and talk about it now. Having that background in biochemical engineering, how did that alter, skew, change the way you look at offenses? How does your brain work when it comes to designing football? What role does engineering play in that?
Analytics, man, numbers, data. I'm a data-driven guy. So a lot of people, if you ever watch a Klein High game, it's we're different. And I think the big thing for me is setting the standard of creating difference in everything that you do. But it's about data points. It's about understanding that everything is numbers. And if you watch us, you'll realize, we don't really punt. We don't kick PATs. We don't kick field goals. And so, people think that I do it because I think it's funny or gimmicky. Again, same thing. But the reality of it is it's not. It's 100% analytically driven, except for, a few occasions when either you have a gut feeling. But, the philosophy was for us, we go for 2 every time. I think we were 79% rate of success. So, at that point in time, you're looking at, if I pull the sheet up, let me look here. I think we're sitting at 2 points. We stole 31 points this year off of 2-point conversions. And so, in the hindsight, people think that, we're just doing it. If they kick PATs, it's a safer mentality. But for me, it's, hey, I know that getting 3 yards is going to be this percentage of success, over 70%. We're averaging 7.3 yards a carry in this game. The fact that we can do what we want to do in that situation, I think that's, I think that's a big deal. I think the other part is, when we talk about onside kicks and things like that, we onside kick almost every time, unless given the opportunity to kick it deep, we will. It goes back to, when we did the research, when we did kick it deep, the kids' average return ball was to the 39-yard line. So their starting field position was 39-yard line. If we onside kicked it and did not get it, the average field position was the 44. So I gave it 5 yards with the opportunity to try to get the ball returned to me. And, for me, that makes sense. And I think that's a lot of people don't understand, the analytics of football. Football's a chess game. I think that's what, one of that's one of the X and O things that really turns me on to it is, it's so important to be 4 or 5 plays ahead to understand, why you do what you do. And I think, when it comes to the engineering part of it, for me to be able to break that stuff down quickly has helped a lot. As much as I'll never want to teach math again in my entire life, it's kind of what I do. So,
yeah. So check this out. So I'm listening to you, the engineering mind, the analytics, the system building, and the thought going through my head is like, why don't more coaches do this? The answer I came up with is they're afraid to do it. Do the analytics remove the fear? Because now you're making informed decisions.
I think so, but I think the reality of it is a lot of people are scared to step out of the comfort zone. So, it's kind of like the old boys club, right? You do what you do. It's status quo. This is what you're supposed to do. And I think, even though you have the analytics to do it, because I can prove the analytics works for me, it works for pretty much everybody else because of the data-driven results. But I think what you're looking at is the same thing that, when I had a head coaching job, my first head coaching job in Missouri, I was a head football coach, and I got in a situation where, I did things my way, but I started listening to people and I started thinking, okay, if I do this the way that they want me to do it, I'll make them happy, right? Because if I fail doing what they want me to do, then it's okay, it's acceptable. But if I fail doing what I want to do, then I'm going to look like an idiot. And again, I think going back to the cultural part of the stuff that we'll talk about later, I think when people talk about looking stupid or doing things differently and not succeeding, they're gonna look down and they're gonna feel like those perceptions are gonna change of them. Why did he go for it on 4th down? Why does he do this? Why does he act that way? But for me, when I was in that head coaching job, I did things the way people thought I should, and I failed, and I was miserable. So my philosophy is I'm gonna do it my way. I can't care what people think because I have a reason I do what I do. I can look in the mirror and know I'm doing what's right for my kids. And reality is, sooner or later, we're all coaches, dude. We're going to get fired someday. Listen, there are 2 things that every man thinks they do better than the other man. That's barbecue and coach football.
Exactly. Exactly. Man, listen. So that's a great segue. You are in the Coaches Co-op with Coach Nick Kadudi. I'm your host. My name is Michael Prejean, also known as Coach P. So you talked about Missouri. So, Coach, take us on your road trip. So you played collegiately, you played in high school, professionally, you coached at the college level, had a few steps along the way on high school. So talk about some of the significant stops in your athletic road trip.
Man, when it comes to football, I've been blessed. It's kind of a movie. When I played in high school, I went to college. I signed with the University of Kansas. It didn't work out. Something happened. I made a mistake as a kid. It's probably why I'm so forgiving at times for kids right now. And I ended up having to go to Baker University. And Baker University was an NAI school. I was there for 2.5, 3 years, I believe. My coaches got let go. I found that being a big fish in a small pond and being a place where people want you to be is actually what makes a great place, day-to-day life. So I went there. I was a 2-time All-American. I transferred to William Jewell College, actually. I was on my way to Iowa State for a visit my senior year, and I was going to go back and play D1 ball again. I was going to live the American dream, yada, yada, yada. And I get a phone call from a guy named Dave Basore. Dave Basore is he was the head coach at William Jewell. He was the defensive coordinator for Sam Houston for a while. He was defensive coordinator at Central Missouri. He's actually Willie Fritz's best friend at University of Houston. And anyways, so he calls me and says, "Hey, I know I don't have a chance, but I'd love to meet with you." And I was like, "Okay." So I stopped in Liberty, Missouri. I met this man. He comes in this white shirt who barely covers his belly, these red slide flip-flops. He's got this raspy voice, like he smoked 4 Pall Malls before he came and saw me. And I'll be honest, I never left. I never left Liberty, Missouri. I fell in love with the man, who he was, what he stood for. That was what, that drove me to be, to understand that, guys like this have an effect on people like me, and he had it in less than 30 minutes. And so I ended up never playing for the guy. I had a red shirt, and he ended up taking a job in Kansas. He actually passed away about 2 years after I got done playing. So anyways, I was at William Jewell College. Got really lucky, man. Believe it or not, my college roommate was Dan Lanning at Oregon.
Okay.
Sweet mate was Robbie Disher. He's the special teams coordinator at Illinois. Another buddy that played with me was a good friend of mine, John Igawugu. He's the linebackers coach for the Giants. He was until they got fired. And there's about 5 or 6 of them that we had a lot of coaches in our group of football players, and they're all engineers, pre-med. The school, William Jewell, is kind of like the Harvard on the Hill. You have to have like a 28 on your ACT to even apply for this place. So, anyways, I left there, man. I actually left school early. I didn't graduate early. I had to drop out because I got invited to the NFL Combine. Went to the Combine, and honestly, this is kind of where I learned about hard work and always being the underdog. I kept getting told, I'm too small, too short, and I always remember I was sitting in an interview room with John Gordon, and I'll never forget this. And he tells me in his raspy voice, he says, "Nick, 2 inches is going to cost you $2 million." I was 2 inches too short. So he sends me to his brother Jay in Orlando. So I go up and play arena ball in Orlando for the Predators. Learned a lot from him. Had to learn how to play the game. He told me I didn't learn how to play arena football. Ended up going to Amarillo, Texas, playing for the Amarillo Dusters. That was a blast. Let me tell you, West Texas. True story. The Big Texan, the 72-ounce, the 72-ounce ribeye that they sell, if you eat it, I've eaten that thing twice in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I was broke, man. I was broke and had no money. And I remember I called my dad, and he's like, "You better figure it out." And we were living in the Big Texan Hotel there in Amarillo, Texas. And I was like, "Dude, I got to eat. I'm hungry, and I don't want to borrow no money from nobody." So I was like, "You know what? I'm going to do it." First time I went in, they put you on the stage, and I was all proper about it. I was sawing it up. And, about 2 weeks later, I was like, "Man, I want to do this again." And you only get to do it twice. And so that time I just got them to fillet it, and I wrapped everything up like a beef burrito and just ate it like, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Fat guy stuff. And so
how old were you?
God, 22.
Young man metabolism.
Oh man.
Young man
Well, I
metabolism.
weighed 350 when I played. I played O-line. So I was 350 pounds when I played. I was a big dude. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So I went there. And then actually, if you look online, about 6 weeks later, I got traded for a box of footballs. Welcome to the Arena Football League, man. I always tell people it was a big box, 100 balls, very, very valuable. And ended up going to Shreveport, Louisiana, played there for a guy named John Norris, who actually was very influential in a lot of things that I did. Left there, went to New Orleans with the Voodoo. Left there, went to Edmonton, Canada, played for the Eskimos. Played in the last year of NFL Europe in Frankfurt Galaxy. Went back to Kansas City, was in camp with the Chiefs. Got cut. Moved back to Springfield, Missouri, and was just training. And at this point in time, I kind of knew I wanted to be a coach, and I had a friend of mine who was like, "Hey, I got a job." So in Missouri, you don't have to teach to coach. So I got my first job as a JV D-line coach at Glendale High School in Springfield, Missouri. Had a blast, man. Had a blast. Ended up leaving there, going to end up playing pro ball again. Green Bay, New York, you name it, brother. I probably was there and probably got cut. I tell people I got cut more times than most people have probably eaten pizza. And, you learn about the hard ways, man. You learn about life. You learn that, people, your value is really important for the people that you care about and love. And you have to stop caring what, people that you don't take advice from. You can't really worry about their opinion on things. And so, I did all that. And then when I got done playing, I remember I tore my ACL my second time. And, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I ended up getting a job at Brigham Young. I was at BYU. I was there as a GA early and then a tight ends coach. Left there, went to LA Valley Community College in Los Angeles. That was a good gig, man. That was a good gig. I actually I taught surfing in Santa Monica Beach at 11 o'clock on Wednesdays. That was my job. Hey, not a bad gig, bro.
That's not a bad gig at all.
Left there, ended up becoming a head coach in Missouri. I was like 28 maybe at the time, 27. And let me tell you something, dude, I wasn't ready. Ended up leading the nation and passing my last year, had a blast. So here's a reference for you. So the guy that hired me, do you remember Glory Road?
Yeah.
The movie Glory Road. Okay. Do you remember the white guy with the glasses who started? Last name was Armstrong. He was the one white guy on that team. The one white guy on Glory Road. He was the center.
Okay.
So
okay.
His son was my athletic director, and he hired me. And his grandson played quarterback for me. So so my first year in Texas, they honored that team at the Final Four in Houston. And I was hanging out in their suite with them, hung out with that whole team. The stories, those dudes actually hate each other, all of them. It's hilarious.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy. So anyways, I left there. I was there I was head coach there for 3 years. Had a blast, man. And then learned a lot of ball. At the time I was running the run and shoot, man. It was we threw the ball over the yard because in Missouri, everybody ran the ball. It was a split back veer, the boring old school dinosaur offenses that you don't see. And then at the time I told my wife, I said, I can't do this anymore. And she's like, well, we're not going back to college. What do you want to do? And I was like, well, what do you think about Texas? And so I applied at 15 schools and got one interview, bro. One. And it was in Beaumont Westbrook High School with a guy named Kevin Flanagan. And Kevin was the OG, man. He was a guy that took a chance on some guy from Missouri. And I came in, I didn't want to be a head coach. I didn't even want to be a coordinator, man, if that makes any sense. I actually wanted to just coach football and go home. I was so burned out. Let me tell you a story. When I was in Missouri, my last year, I had a school board member break in my house because I didn't play his kid enough. Like, that's the stuff I was dealing with. Had emergency board meetings because the board president's son wasn't getting the ball enough. Like, this is real. Like, I was, and I'm 27, 28 years old. I'm just happy to have a job at this. I'm getting frustrated. Yeah. But anyway, so I go to Beaumont. I think I'm like the inside receivers coach in the spring. Next thing you know, I'm the assistant DC in the fall. And it's funny because, I'm sitting there and it's like February. Nobody knows me. I'm just some slappy from Missouri. And in walks in, like every college coach in America, right? Well, all those guys know me. Like, they played with me, coached against me. And like, I remember Flanagan's like, how do you know all these guys? I was like, I promise you, I'm not a slappy. I promise you. I'm good at my job, And so ended up being the assistant DC that first year. We go to the first round they went to the first round for the first time in like 5 years. Ended up that after that semester, ended up being the offensive coordinator. And we went 3 rounds, and that was a wild year, man. And Flan took some chances on me and gave me an opportunity and let me do the things I wanted to do. And he ended up getting suspended over some stuff that really wasn't a big deal, and stuff, that he got accused of that really wasn't real. So he had my back, so I had his, man. And I think, when you find men of integrity, not necessarily what people think of them, but in the end of the day, they got your best mind, your best interest, right? He told me, he's like, I'm gonna get the Tomball High job. Will you go with me? And I didn't even hesitate. Absolutely, I'll go. You took a chance on me, brother. I'm gonna take a chance with you. And I was there for 4 years, man. We turned that thing around pretty quickly. And if you follow Tomball football, man, they can play some ball. It wasn't 8 years ago, buddy. That place was not good at football.
Listen,
it was bad.
They were not good at a lot of things 8 years ago.
Nope. And then funny story, man. I got a funny story how I got my first head coaching job in Texas. You got time to listen to this one?
Oh, coach.
So get this. So I get a phone call. It's COVID. It's COVID. It's 2020. And it's March. And it really hadn't hit. It just started to hit so I remember I was in Cleveland doing a glazier clinic. And my father and I used to have these little things, man. What we would do is we would go to one of my glazier clinics and he would go listen to me and we got to spend time the weekend. It was like a dad-son weekend, and we'd always do it. And this time we were in Cleveland and my dad was living in Pittsburgh. So I was in Cleveland and COVID was just happening and they shut the clinic down. So I drove back to Pittsburgh with my dad and I was like, hey, it was like Friday night. I was like, hey, I should probably go home. I got to see the kids. And so Friday night I did that, flew home. My mom calls me Saturday morning. My dad passed away that night, which is crazy, bro. And so, I flew out. I literally flew out the next day to see, my mom, take care of some things. I was there for about 3 weeks. And on my flight home, I'm flying from Pittsburgh to Houston. And I'll never forget this, man. It's just me. I'm the only person on the plane other than the flight attendants. And I get a phone call and I'm like, I'm going to answer it. And it was a lady named Nikki Nelson. She was the athletic director at Lamar Consolidated ISD. And she calls me and says, hey, I got your resume from a friend. Our job of Lamar Consolidated High School is open. We would love for you to interview for this job if you'd be interested. And I was on the plane. I was like, you know what? I'll call you back. I'll let you know. And so anyways, I ended up taking the interview. First round, second round, kill it. Third round, I'm like, man, I'm going to get this job. Like, like my AD called me, my superintendent called me, I'm going to get this job. And next thing you know, I don't hear anything. And I get a phone call from HR and she's like, hey, I know this is what you thought you were going to hear, but we took a different name to the board. Okay. And this is when I started really figuring out what Texas high school football politics was about. And, and I'll be honest with you, man, the guy that got the job is actually a friend of mine and I really like him, but it's what it is. What it is. And he was in the right place, the right time, knew the right people. And so she's like, well, we're opening a new school next year. We'd love for you to interview for that job. And I said, okay, sounds good. So I did. And it was Randall High School. And needless to say, Randall High School went to Brian Randall. And I respectfully so, brother. Like I get it. And he's killed it, like how can I be mad about it? But I was the finalist for that job too. And then she's like, hey, would you be willing to get punched in the mouth a third time? And at this point in time, I'm 10 interviews deep. And I'm like, why not? And that was Fulshear High School. In fact, I never even knew where Fulshear was. I had no idea. I hadn't even heard of it. I thought it was Fulshear. You know what I'm saying? And so they were bad. They had won 7 games in 4 years and it was a rough, but you know what? I was so just adamant and kind of petty about it. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn this place around and I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it and kind of do it that way. But in this road of travel, man, you meet these great people, so when I played for the Texans, I played for Shanahan, both Shanahans, Kubiak, McVay was there. McDaniel was there. LaFleur was there. So all these NFL coaches were there with me. And I was on injured reserve. So all I did was sit in the field house and in the building and learn ball and
soak it up.
No, man. Then you meet guys like Kevin Flanagan, who I found in the right time, who, he taught me how to deal with parents and he taught me how to, like delegate responsibilities instead of having to do it myself. And then, you meet all these people in this road to travel and you start realizing, this is what it's about. And then you realize, man, it's about finding people that believe in you and finding the road with them. Like Nikki Nelson took 3 chances on me. And I remember she sat there with me at the final interview. She goes, if I pray to God, you're the man I think you are. And if you are, you will be the greatest hire I've ever had because you've worked so hard to get here. And, to this day, I still talk to her. She's actually in Washington. She just had her 4th round of chemo, believe it or not. And still talk to her because she took a chance on some guy who probably a little brash, a little over the top, got crazy hair, he does things his way. And so you meet people like that and you realize, man, without people like that, you're never going to make it in this business. And for all the haters, you got some lovers and some people that really believe in you. And so when you talk about it, man, it's, you take the good, you take the bad. I have a notebook and it's right here. I have this notebook right here. And in this notebook is everything that I wrote down as all the coaches that I had from high school to college to everything I did. And in this book is all the things that I will and will not do as a football coach.
That's good.
And I go through and the reason I have it with me right now is every year over Christmas break, I go through and reread and highlight things that I want to see and just reevaluate the things that I've done. Because let's get real, man. I'm not perfect. You know, I make mistakes every freaking day. I just don't want to make those mistakes twice.
That's good. When I was coaching, I thought at the end of every year, I was better than the year before, regardless of record. Didn't matter how the season went, how the season ended. At the end of every year, I always thought I was better at the end than I was at the beginning, and then better than I was the year before. Coach, man, that's an outstanding road trip. So for people who don't know you, who don't know your story, man, that's a great story. Listen, he's not a slappy, guys. This guy knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. So lots of leadership lessons. Let me ask this question. I don't want to go there yet. I kind of want to wait until we get there. So I got some. I don't want to ask every question here, but let me ask this one.
Yeah, what you got?
So you touched on this earlier. About the Klein High School, right?
Yep.
So tell me about the balance, right? So we got this school history, right? And we want to push change. We want to do some things. So talk about balancing that, right? So I got this. This is the flagship of the district, and we want to come in and make some changes. So, because historically, so let me frame this. Historically, Fulshire and not very good. Coach Codutti shows up, turns some things around. Tomball, not very good. Coach Codutti shows up along with Kevin Flanagan, turn some things around, and Tomball's still rocking and rolling to this day. So you've got a history, right? Of, hey, I'm going to make an impact when I show up. So, but that impact comes with making some changes. So how do you balance that, right? You got the flagship, and I want to make these changes. Talk about that.
You know, I think that's the battle, right? Here's what I will tell you about change. People aren't scared of change. They fear the loss of something. So that's how I approach it, right? So like, again, people don't mind change. They change stuff all the time. They change their clothes, they change their hair, but it's not the change that scares them. It's the fear of losing something. So when you talk about changing a traditional thing here at Klein, the big one for me was the K, right? The block K that Klein had. Well, I went back and researched, man. I'm telling you, I went back and found yearbooks from like the 40s and 50s. And I found that K had changed like 15 times. In fact, the K behind me, the old English K is the K they put on the diplomas. And it was the K that they had when they won the state title in baseball in 95. And it was the K they had in the 60s for a few years. And so, for me, it was like, okay, if you want change, you have to create a visual representation of what you want, right? It doesn't have to be, it could be drastic, it could not be drastic, but you have to find some visual representation. And so the K to me was the visual representation of change within the athletic department at Klein High. So how do you balance it? And I think the big thing you have to do is you have to understand anytime that you take over a culture, right? And it's the conversation that people have all the time, what is culture, all that good stuff. And I can get into that stuff for days, man, days. That's my jam. I love it. It's probably the one thing that, I could sit here and talk about all day, and I'm really lucky, man. I get to go around the country and talk about it. But the one thing I would tell you is what I think is so awesome about it is, how do you do it? And I think there's a few things you look at, number one, there's two ways a culture is created, right? It's either happens with, consideration and conscious intent, or by contrast, it just comes together as it does, giving a little thought in the process. So for me, it was, okay, we're going to have a conscious intent of, we're going to have some change. What is the change going to look like? How are we going to balance and keep the traditions alive? Anytime you walk into a place, the first thing you have to do is you have to become familiar with it. What's the culture you're looking for? What is it right now? What are some of the things that you see that are like, what are the things they do? All right. And then the next thing you gotta do is you gotta say, okay, why do we do what we do right now? So, for example, why do they care so much about this K? Why does the band get on the field for the national anthem unlike any other place I've ever been? Why do they do it? Right? Why did they go no shoes on the blue in the locker room? Why do, whatever it might be, and I think when you do this, you have to, what do you want to die on? What hill? What do you want to change? What do you not want to change? What is the, what's the thing that, for example, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, there's some things about this place I'm never going to change because it's just Klein, and that's okay. But there are some things I'm going to die on a hill because I don't think there's any reason we do it. There's no real, love. I think anywhere you go, there's a lot of romanticism that happens in anything you do, right? It's like as the older you get, the better the stories you tell. When you got in a fight back in the day in junior high, by the time you're 35, you beat up 4 people, even though you got the crap beat out of you, right? You romanticize.
Yeah.
But the next thing you do is you look ahead, man, and you make these predictions about where you're headed. So when you tell people like, hey, this is the goal, this is the vision, this is where we're headed. And when you get people to buy into that, they buy into the core values and the beliefs and things like that. And then when you do that, you create the common language. So you try to find a way to find the common language of the old and the new, right? So like right now, anytime you change, you're going to upset somebody. It's going to happen, right? And a lot of people say things need to change, but nothing ever changes. You've been to that part. You've been that part in your life,
Definitely.
And so that was a thing here, and there's some people that I got upset about what I did, and the K and wearing black uniforms for the first time ever. That's Klein Oak colors. Okay, well, black's just a color, and my response was, it's every color combined.
Yeah.
And when they talk about, well, why are you, like, for example, like, why are you doing this? Why did you not? Right. And so make people question and think the things they want. But really, I think the hardest thing is you just got to be willing to be adaptable. Right. Like, and I'm a guy that comes in guns blazing, brother. I ain't gonna lie to you. And when I went to Fulshire, it was full on rebrand. And here's something I believe in, and this is something you've got to understand as a coach, as a businessman, an entrepreneur, a teacher. I am a firm believer in the Google 7-11-4 rule. You familiar with that?
Talk about it.
So 7-11-4 rule is a marketing guideline and a psychological thing that has truly shown results from Google. Basically, it's a marketing guideline by Google that basically says, if you want people to buy in, brainwash, if you will, if you want them to buy in, to remember the things you need them to remember, you have to have 7 hours of content, 11 touch points, and 4 different platforms. Platform being a website, social media, email, YouTube, whatever. Touch points, a T-shirt, a poster, a commercial, whatever. And then 7 hours of content. So to get people to buy in, they have to go through that process of 7 hours, 11 touch points, and 4 different platforms because it gets ingrained in their head. It's the same thing I tell you. If I say snap, crackle, pop, what do you think of?
Rice Krispies.
If you think of just do it, what do you think of?
Oh, that's Nike all day, right?
Yeah. Da 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 da.
When I say the mothership, what do people think of?
They think of Klein High.
There it is.
And really what you got to learn is no matter if people don't like the change, as long as you have good intentions in mind and you keep pushing it, they may not like it, but they will remember it. And when the majority buys in, the rest will follow. It's the 10-80-10 rule. Like Urban Meyer says, the 10-80-10. You got the 10 top 10, you got the 80 and the 10. You're going to pull everybody up. So next time you think about it and you go through the process of things that you remember, cultures you remember, things that are in your head, think about that 7-11-4 rule. And I promise you, it'll blow your mind. It's a real thing. It's about, they went through, actually, there was multiple studies done in the 60s and 70s, basically brainwashing you to remember these things. McDonald's was one of the first ones to do it. And it's, it's really interesting how it all works. But for me, that's how I do it. That's the belief of we're going to do this. That's why I'm all over social media. That's why I'm all over things. That's why, brother, if there's something that has to do with Klein, you will see the mothership somewhere. Every time you turn around, you will see it. Right. And that's what I'm here for.
That's important. So I got a question I want to ask, but let me say these things before I forget. Brandon Chavis played for you.
Yeah.
At Beaumont Westbrook. So he is the first person who told me, he was like, man, you got to meet Coach Kadudi. He was like, man, he is awesome. He is awesome. So, man, shout out to Coach Chavis. And then I remember, I know Fulsher.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I'm gonna just go ahead and say this. I was a girls basketball coach, right? So, but I keep up with football. It's Texas. You got to keep up with football,
100%,
right?
100%.
But I know Fulsher because Fulsher was good in football.
Yeah.
That's how I know about Fulsher. And I never forget when you came back to this side of town, people were asking me like, hey, so what is it about Klein that he's leaving Fulsher to go to Klein? Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people ask those things. So I wanted to say those things. There's one other thing I want to say. We got to go back about 10 minutes, but I know some kids, some younger coaches may watch this. If y'all don't know what Pall Malls are cigarettes. Okay. Pall Malls are
I didn't even
cigarettes.
think about it, man.
Yeah. Some of y'all might not know what that is. All right. Let me ask my question here. What's harder, changing people's habits or changing people's beliefs?
Man, that's really good. I think habits are easier to change than beliefs. The beliefs, to me, when you believe something, it's because you have a vested interest in it. A habit's easy. It just takes time, right? Like habit can be broken in 21 days.
Yeah.
But a belief is something that's vested interest into your heart, and you know, there's something about it that there's a value to it that you don't want to let go. Does that make sense? You know, and I think when you talk about building habits, I think the continual exercise of doing the same thing over and over and over, that's a habit build. But I can still do the same thing over and over and over and not change your belief on anything. I mean, let's think about it, brother. There's a reason why there's 5,000 denominations of the Christian religion, because people believe a certain way and they're not going to change, because no matter what you say to them, their way is the right way. And I think when you get to those people in our career and our profession, you can't always expect to change it. And I think a lot of coaches fail when they think they can change somebody's beliefs. And the end of the day, if those people don't believe in you, when times get tough, buddy, it's not going to turn out well for you.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good word right there. All right, let me do my commercial here. And then we're going to get back to this conversation in just a second. We'll get back to the conversation in a second. But here at the Coaches Co-op, we're all about building championship level systems on and off the court. This episode is brought to you by The Path for Coaches, because iron sharpens iron and real growth happens when coaches support coaches. If you're looking to level up your team culture, fine-tune your playbook, or just stay motivated through the grind, check out The Path for Coaches. You can find The Path for Coaches at Amazon.com, or you can send me a direct message on IG at podcast_with_Prejean. Unlock the power of mentoring. Discover ways to be a good mentor and find good mentors with The Path for Coaches, Volume 1, Mentoring. All right, you are in the Coaches Co-op, the go-to podcast for coaches looking to elevate their culture, leadership, and team success. We are here with the campus athletic director and head football coach at the Mothership in Klein ISD, Klein High School, Coach Nick Kadudi. Coach, what's the hardest thing about your job that nobody really knows?
The time. There's two things I say about this job that are difficult, and it's not even difficult. It's just things that people don't understand in this job. I'm a football coach and athletic director. I probably spend, give or say 10% of my time doing football. The rest of it is doing administrative things, other stuff like that. But it's time commitment, especially when we be successful. You know, I think you can decide if you want to show up to things, right? But the reality of it is I need women's sports to feel as though as important as football. And I need to make sure that the middle schools understand that they're important. And I got to make sure that I'm at choir and things like that, because again, I want to support, right? I'm here. I am the face of an entire department of this building, right? So everything that doesn't have to do with academics is me, right? And so I feel like, Chris Morton was my O-line coach. He's a Klein High grad, and he always says something to me every game. And he's like, "Hey, brother, it's the SS Kadudi. This ship sings, baby. It's got your name on it." And he's right. And so, I think when you the time commitment is a big one. And I think the other one is how to deal with parents. I think that is probably one thing that people don't understand about this, the job, not necessarily Klein, just the job in general. And if you're going to do this position, you're so directly related to this. Day before, the guy I was telling you, William Jewell, I told him that I wanted to be a coach my last year, and he said, so he brought a bunch of us together, and he did two things for me. Number one, he made me get my referee certification, and I had to referee games. So when I was in college, we reffed games. So, like, for example, we play on Saturday, and we'd ref like junior high football games on like Wednesdays in Liberty, Missouri. And then the next thing he did was he made us, as a coaching, as a group of football players, we had to take over a little league football team for a season, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, you figure out real quick. But he said it. Yep. And he afterwards he's like, man, what's the hardest part? It was a 2 year, it was like a year span, 2.5 months where we did all this. And he said, okay, what's the one thing that you got out of all this? And my response was, parents suck as a referee, as a coach, because I have daughters, man, and I get it, man. Blood is thicker than water, but they're blind. They're watching out for their baby, and their baby they don't feel like their baby's getting the right opportunities and whatever it might be, right? But that's the hardest part, and you got to learn how to deal with it. They can be your biggest adversary, but they can also be your biggest support system. And I think, learning how to deal with that and balance that, what do you call it?
Yeah. And one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first became a head coach is I was like, man, I do not want to deal with parents, right?
Right.
That was in year one. And then in year two, I was like, no, I need to have great relationships with my parents. So a couple of things before I ask your next question. You mentioned, man, being the head football coach, and it's the SS Codutti. I will say this, I guarantee you more people know who the head football coach is of a school than they know who the principal is.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So that's a real thing. And then I wrote this question earlier, but you talked about your O-line coach. So I want to circle back to it. Why are offensive linemen, offensive line coaches, and offensive coordinators, why do they become such great head coaches?
Analytics, man. It's organization, right? So again, as an O-line coach, there's two things you got to understand as an O-line coach. Number one, nobody knows who you are. And you have to build a relationship with a group of men and make them believe that their job is more important than anything in the world without getting any accolades or any kind of acceptance publicly. Right? I always tell my O-line coach, like, there's only two women watching you in the stands. That's your girlfriend and your mom, and neither one have a clue what's going on. Baby, I'm your biggest fan. But again, it goes back to, you have to be able to do those things with humility. And I think the other thing is, doing that and building relationships with a different group of kids that they don't get it. As an offensive coordinator, I think really it's just analytics, man. It's controlling the controllables. I think, defense is there's a lot of emotion involved in defense. There truly is, and I think offensively, being in your emotions is not always a good thing. And so I think that's probably a really good answer. I'll tell you, it's crazy enough, man. I brought 11 coaches with me from Fulshear to Klein. 11, and all of them are, I think, at some point in time going to want to be head coaches, assistant head coaches, but they all have their value. And I think that, my job is to teach them how to get the goals that they want, right? You want to be a head coach? These are the things you better do. And it's my job to grow you. And if I'm not growing you, I'm doing a poor job. So I think a lot of guys that become good head football coaches they got groomed into a great situation. So,
yeah. So that's good stuff. Let's go back to the coaching the Pee Wee football. So officiating, I think every coach, I think it should be mandatory that no matter what sport you coach, you need to go officiate.
Yeah. Right? It's a different perspective on it, man.
Yeah, you need to see the game from that angle. So you got the chance to officiate. You got the chance to coach the Pee Wee football. It gave you a different perspective, on the game and on parents. But what about the actual teaching of the game? What did you get from a teaching perspective when you had to coach youth football?
Organization and simplicity, man. Organization and simplicity. Believing in something so much that you could sell ice to Eskimos, that those kids are going to be willing to buy into what you're doing. You know, I think as coaches, and you've probably been guilty because I know I have been, overthinking and overcoaching and trying to do too much instead of letting kids play at that little league level, bro. You know, everybody wants to put all these plays in because some plays see success and they're big plays. And for me, bro, I just want you to do it right. Like you ever seen semi-pro, you know, with Will Ferrell?
Uh-huh.
All right. And he goes, Coach, you've been running this play, you know, for 4 hours. And he's like, he goes, yeah, we call it the puke. You're going to run this play until you puke.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, I feel that, brother. You know, I feel that. Like that's who we're going to be. We're going to do something so well that you can't screw it up. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not till you get it right. It's till you can't screw it up.
You can't get it wrong.
You know, and I truly believe that teaching Little League football taught me that you can run 2 plays and be extremely successful as long as your kids do what they're supposed to do. I firmly believe it. And I honestly, when I was in college, I felt the same way, and I feel the same way now. I mean, honestly, boring football, man.
I'm a basketball guy. Clyde Drexler is in the Hall of Fame. I don't know anybody who knows if he has a left hand.
Oh, I know.
He's going right. He's going right. And do something about it. And
he did it.
Okay, so is complex. I didn't even get to my other questions because I keep asking follow-up questions. Do you think complexity sometimes is just insecurity disguised as intelligence?
Oh, yeah. I think people, the Fineman theory. Do you ever heard of the Fineman theory?
Educate us.
Okay, the Fineman theory. To be able to take the most complex thing and summarize it in just a few sentences.
Yes.
If you cannot do it, you do not know it.
You don't know it. You don't know it. Yeah.
You can use big words. Brother, I can talk ball all day and talk about quarter shell, roll down, spoke safety. You're going to look at me like I'm stupid. But it won't make me sound smart. You know, I think for me, that's how I teach our coaches and I teach our kids. It's okay. Teach it to me. You've got 30 seconds. Teach it to me.
That's right.
And if the kids can't teach it to me, all right, let's start over. Let's start over and let's get it. You know what I'm saying? Let's start over and let's get it.
Listen, this is the Coaches Co-op, a masterclass in athletic leadership. If you are watching now, or if you're going to watch this later or listen to it later, you are in a masterclass. You need to get in touch with Coach Kadudi. Let me put his information up here on the screen. You need to get in touch with him. You need to follow him. You need to ask him, Coach, can I come and watch you practice? You need to listen. He's given us theories. We got the 7-11-4 Google rule, the Fineman theory, the 10-80-10. You thought you were tuning in to talk about football. Surprise. Here we go. Next question, Coach. What's the easiest thing about the job that nobody knows? Easiest thing about the job?
Coaching, bro. Yeah. That's the easiest thing. Building relationships with kids. You know, it doesn't matter if you're in Beaumont, Tomball, Fulshire, the king of LDS schools, LA. Kids are kids. Kids want to be held to a standard, and they want to feel like they're valued with authenticity. Yes. That's the thing. People want to feel valued with authenticity. And that is the easiest part of the job if you let it be. You don't have to overthink it. Be genuine, be yourself, and you will be amazed at what people will do.
That's it. So I have conversations with people. Another follow-up question before I get to the next question. I have conversations with coaches all the time, you know, and they'll be like, man, kids have changed. My take is no, they haven't. I don't think kids have changed. I think it's the adults who are around my age. I'm 48. I think it's the adults who are around my age that have changed. What say you? What are your thoughts?
Oh, no, 100% agree with you. I think, you know, what's the old saying? You know, tough times bring, you know, tough times bring, tough people bring soft, so on and so forth. I think that the kids are kids, man. Like kids are kids, but at the end of the day, I think as adults and parenting, those have changed. Those philosophies of how you do things have changed. Maybe the structure of discipline that you might have with kids today, right? That's probably changed. But the reality of it, man, kid's a kid. They don't know any different.
Yeah.
They just want to feel valued, right? They want to feel heard, and they want to feel like you give a crap about them, and they want to feel like that they're being successful because of you're helping them, right? That's all it is. Kids haven't changed, man. Brother, people ask me all the time, have you changed the way that you coach over the years? And the answer is no. I just build a relationship with kids and coach the way I coach. And once you get to learn a kid, man, like I think something I think people struggle with, and this might bring the girly part of me in, but The 5 Languages of Love is a great book for any coach to read, man. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's the 5 languages of love that fill the love tank, that make you feel valued, make you feel important, make you feel special, that make you happy, and every kid has a different love language that makes them feel special, that allows them to be coachable, right? Just because you yell at a kid and then you yell at the next kid and he doesn't listen, but the other one does, and this one's not coachable, it might not be it, man. Right? Like you've got physical touch, right? Some kids want a certain handshake. Like I got a kid, our running back, EJ Kelly this year. Yeah. This dude, that might be the touchiest human being on earth, man. He comes up and hugs you all the time. He like rubs the back of your head. He's like, "Hey, coach." Yeah. Okay, bro, that's you. That's who you are. You need physical touch. You've got words of affirmation. People that just want to know verbally that they're doing a good job. You've got acts of service. People want to feel like, when people do things for them out of the ordinary, it makes them feel special. All right. Yeah. You've got gift giving. People want, when you, like, for example, there's a kid that might want a pair of gloves that you have, like, "Hey, bro, I got these for you." That makes them feel special. Some kid might be like, "Cool, thanks, man." And then you've got quality time. Some kids just want to sit in my office and not do anything, but they want to be around.
Just want to be around.
It creates a connection for them. And if you allow that, with your limitations, right? You have your line. If you allow that, that kid feels fulfilled and he feels full. And that's all it is, man. Kids are kids. You just got to figure out how your kids react.
That's it. All of you parents out there, youth football coming up, playing for the Klein Broncos or whatever program feeds in the Klein High School, make sure your coach reads. All right. Get you a coach who reads. That's really what you need. That is super important. All right, coach. If you weren't in athletics, what would you be doing?
All right. I get asked this question. I would not be an engineer.
Okay.
It's not my thing, man. There's no way I could do it. I'll be honest with you, man. If I wanted to make a boatload of money, I'd be a salesman. If I wanted to do what I loved, I'd be a chef. My grandmother used to own an Italian restaurant in Philly. So my dad's an Argentine immigrant, and my grandmother was an Italian immigrant to Argentina. And we owned a fusion restaurant out of the back of her home, a family-style restaurant in Philadelphia, where it was only open on Friday and Saturday nights. It was a 7-course meal, 2 options, all you can eat, all you can drink. I forgot how much it was, but the whole family would go in the back and cook. You ever seen the movie Nonas on Netflix? It's very similar, bro, but it was my grandmother and the family back there cooking. Homemade rolled gnocchi, we make the Sunday gravy. We'd make that thing on like Wednesday and it would cook all the way to Friday. To me, that's my love language, man. I love cooking for people, I like hosting, and I like making. I like when people see something I created and they enjoy it. Right? That's fun to me. So that's what I think I would do. I'd probably open a restaurant, man.
That's good stuff. Go birds, right?
Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. It's hard to be an Eagles fan sometimes.
They might need some wide shoot offense.
They need some. They're struggling.
That might be what they need. All right, coach. I asked enough follow-up questions. I'm not going to ask my next question. So let's go here. Every guest, I ask them to play a game with me.
Let's do it.
All right. So I got about 21, 22 questions because as we've been going through, I've been adding questions to it. It's kind of rapid fire. So let's call it the 2-minute drill.
All right. Let's have
it. 2-minute drill. So 3 sections, either or, agree, disagree. And then the last section is word association. Let's dive into it. 2 minutes on the clock, 2 minutes on the proverbial clock. All right, Coach, either or, presence or preparation?
Presence.
Standards or relationships?
Relationships.
Vision or goals?
Goals.
Teaching or correcting? Same thing.
Teaching.
Okay. Staff alignment or player buy-in?
Staff alignment.
Okay. I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask. Simplicity or creativity?
Simplicity.
All right. Process or outcome?
Process.
That's why this guy's a great coach, man. Listen, agree or disagree. Leadership means being misunderstood.
Agree.
Culture must be measured to matter.
Agree.
Kids deserve forgiveness.
Agree.
Winning exposes leadership gaps.
The biggest liar in sports is the scoreboard. Agree.
Okay. Let's go word association. Here we go.
Okay.
First word, character.
Integrity.
Connection.
Relationships.
Competency.
Intelligence.
Standards.
Necessary.
Legacy.
Legacy. Belief.
All right, Coach, I appreciate you playing that 2-minute drill with me. Not only did we score a touchdown, we went for 2 and got the 2-point conversion. That's good stuff right there, Coach.
That's right, man.
I appreciate it. All right, Coach, this brings us into crunch time. This is about the last 5 minutes. It ain't gonna be the last 5 minutes because I know I'm gonna have some follow-up questions. All right. So old basketball coach and me, we go 3, 2, 1 in crunch time. We go 3 in the key, 2 shots, and then we end on and 1. So let's start with 3 in the key.
Okay.
What are 3 things that all athletic professionals need to succeed?
Oh, you did it to me, man. You did it to me. I had sent this to you. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
I had sent this to you and I was like, man, I hope that this is right. Like, I hope that this is right. And I was like, man, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I think, when you asked me something about, what does it take for people to be successful, right? Like, what is the things that we need? There was a few things that came to mind, but I think really, it's number one, it's FaceTime matters. I think, learning happens through presence. You have to show up, you got to be visible. When you invest time in people, that's pretty much everything. And I think a lot of people struggle with that idea. Does that make sense? The 3 C's. And this is the 3 C's is how I hire coaches. I hire coaches. It's my belief in how we do things as a program. And it's this, in this order: character, connection, and competency. So character, number 1 is, you have to be a good person. You don't have to be a saint, but you have to be a good person, because those people that are following you need to see the visual leadership role that you're trying to achieve, and they need to be able to see that. Connection. In our profession, man, if you can't connect to kids and can't connect to the people around you, you're going to fail. It doesn't matter how much you know. You might be the best X and O football coach in America, but if you can't connect to kids and get them to understand why you're doing what you're doing, they'll never win, right? And the last thing is, competency. At the end of the day, like, you can teach basketball to somebody. I can teach football to somebody, but I can't teach you to be a good person. And I surely can't teach you how to relate to a kid. And so in that order, those are the 3 things that you're going to need. Okay. The 3 things you're going to need to succeed in this profession. And the last thing is goals and vision. You asked me during the word association, goal, goals and vision. A goal is literally everything. A vision is just a dream, right? If you have a vision without goals, right? Like, this is what I want to be, but you don't have goals to get there. You're just living a dream, man. You're just spinning your wheels. But a vision is what sets the direction of where you're going, and the goals are the things that create movement, accountability, and allow you to get to that vision. Does that make sense? So if I had to say it, man, you got to have FaceTime, the 3 C's, and goal and vision.
That's good stuff. Of course, I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
So FaceTime matters. Why is presence the most undervalued leadership skill?
In today's world, man, there's a lot of instant gratification, right? There's a lot of people they're seen on Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it might be. But I think FaceTime is everything. When somebody is going to hire somebody, what's the one thing they remember? They just go back in their head. It goes back to the 7-11-4 rule. If you want people to believe in you, you've got to be there. They need to see you 7 hours, 11 different source points, 11 different touch points, and 4 different sources. They need to see you active on social media. They need to see you at basketball games. They need to see you at these things, because then they believe and they know that you're there. You don't want to be the guy that just shows up when he has to.
Because you can't lead people if you're never around, correct?
100%.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. All right, Coach, this brings us to 2 shots. 2 shots. This is 2 of the toughest challenges or foulest things that you've experienced. So you already mentioned one earlier about the board member in Missouri breaking in your house. That is absolutely crazy. But what do you have for 2 shots?
Number 1, man, toughest challenges in my current role. Navigating the culture you're trying to change, but at the same time maintaining the tradition that they want, right? You know, every district has its own rules, habits, history, things like that. But understanding that current cultural temperature and pushing it to where it needs to be is always this balancing act. When you take over a program or any program, you take over a business, there's always a reason it is the way it is. And you have to find the balance of creating the change and how much change you need, as opposed to holding on to certain things that people find valuable, that they love, that they hold on to, right? It's not change that scares people. It's the fear of losing something. It's the fear of losing that normalcy every day, the comfort level. And so making people feel comfortable with this change is the hardest thing you can do. I think for me personally, the number 2 thing that's the toughest challenge in this role, and it's more of a personal thing for myself, is being comfortable being misunderstood. When you are a leader, I think that you're going to be misunderstood anyways, right? You mentioned that, right? Like being a leader means you're going to be misunderstood. 100% you are, because if you are making everybody happy, you're not doing the things that need to be done to be changed. Someone told me once that leadership is a lonely place, right? And so, that's why you have to surround yourself with the people like your clan that believe in you, that support you, because you need that positive influence in the back of your ear. Because, for me personally, there are times that I'm the villain. Right? I'm the villain publicly, right? And I think I lean into that quite a bit, to be honest with you, because it creates an image and something for people to believe in. So like for me, I'm willing to sacrifice what people think of me outside of my circle, because it gets you talking about us. It creates a vibe. It's about, listen, if I was Gary Joseph at Katy High School, I don't need to have this mentality and this persona of being this over the top bad guy, because it's already done. You just do what you do, hold the standard. But for me, a lot of it is just a persona that you put on, because you want your kids to believe, man, my coach has got some confidence. He's got some swag to him. He doesn't care what people think. We're just going to do things our way. We're going to do it right. And so when you do those things, the kids matriculate that feel. Like attitude reflect leadership. Right. That great quote from Remember
the Titans.
But it's true. Yeah. It's a real statement, man. Like your attitude of your team is going to reflect who you are. And I want my team to walk out with some swag. I want my school to have some swag. And to be able to do that, I have to have swag. And when you are the person who sees success and you push boundaries and do things out of the ordinary, people are always going to think you're arrogant and you're an a-hole. It doesn't matter what you do. Does that make sense? Because now, if we weren't successful, nobody would care.
That's right.
But because you're successful, people want to hate. And it's not just me. I mean, think about it. How many people hate the president of the United States? It doesn't matter if you're talking Obama, Trump. It doesn't matter. There's so many haters, because at the end of the day, they're successful. whether you believe it or not, they are the most important person in the world. And that's success.
Yeah.
And people hate.
How do you stay grounded? So I get on my TikTok and I talk mostly about basketball and stuff, but I came across a clip of you, right? Talking to Matt, was it Matt Malatesta?
Yeah.
So I addressed it on my TikTok. So how do you stay grounded knowing that you're labeled as a villain by some people?
You take it with a grain of salt, man. And I'll be honest with you, it does wear on you, man. It does, because no matter what you say, you want people to like who you are, but for me, I have to surround myself with people that know and understand that I'm here for the greater good, right? Like for me, let me explain a few things. Number one, if people want me to be the villain, I'll be the villain. If people want me to be the good guy, I'll be the good guy. Whatever my team needs, I will be that person. But the one thing you got to understand is this, and I said it in that interview, just because you're somebody's villain doesn't mean you're not somebody's hero. Somebody always hates somebody, right? Somebody always loves somebody. And so like I asked the kids, I'm like, who's your hero? My dad. Oh yeah, he's your hero. Why? Okay. Somebody hates your dad? Oh yeah. So your dad is your hero and he's somebody else's villain. Just being a villain doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that person doesn't like you. And I'm going to give you a reason to not like me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's a reason why 11 coaches moved their families to come from Fulshire to Klein with me, to leave comfort. Hey, 2 of them opened Fulshire High School and came here to move with me because they know at the end of all of it said and done, I love them like family. I will take care of my people and I'm here for them, right? That's the whole thing. It's the people in your circle are so important. And if you love them, what's it matter what everybody else thinks?
Coach, that's good stuff right here. Man, listen, this has been awesome, but this brings us to the very last segment in this episode. It's called N1, right? One thing that you want to share before we get out of here. Coach Kadudi, what do you have for and one?
To any young coach that's listening to this, man, I need you to understand anything that you do in life, a standard has to be set. If you're changing a culture of your home, right? Let's say you're having a relationship issue or you're raising your kid or, you're starting a business or you're coaching. There are 5 things that have to happen for you to change a culture and a standard. All right. Now hear me out. Number 1, you have to define it clearly. If you cannot define what your standard is, you have nothing, right? So for example, showing up on time. What does it mean to show up on time? 5 minutes early, coach. Doors lock at 6. I got to be there at 5:55. Define what early means. Define what late means. The next thing you do after you define is you teach it. You have to teach what you want, and you have to teach it with clarity using the Fineman theory. In the most simplistic terms, can you teach what you're trying to achieve, right? I'm going to teach you what being late means. It means if you show up after 5 minutes early, you are late. Being late this is what happens. Pop, 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 pop. You are going to teach it. So for me, what does it mean? It means the doors lock at 6. You have to be there at 5:55. If you're not there at 5:55 and you have a reason, you must communicate why. The next thing you got to do is you got to live it. So define it, teach it, live it. If I show up late to practice, you think those kids are going to want to come here on time? If the people that champion the behavior you want, if they do it, then the rest will follow. You got to understand that people want it to be seen. Words mean nothing without action. The last thing is you have to measure it. If you cannot measure a standard, you have simplistic words. Every time, I have this conversation with our coaches all the time. We have like, hey, what standard do you want to set? Hey, where do we fail? Da 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 da. And everyone's got these great ideas, toughness and physicality, and cool. How do you measure it? Because you have to show a way that it's progressing or regressing. Are you getting better or are you getting worse? And if you have no way of measuring it, you have nothing. You just have words. You have to measure your success or your failure so that you can figure out how to fix it. And the last thing is this: reward the behaviors that you want. Stop punishing the ones that you don't. Example, and this is important. Everybody punishes the kids that screw up, but the kids that do it the right way get left in the wayside. And we spend the majority of our time dealing with the negative instead of dealing with the positive. For us, if you're on time and you do it, so for us, we're going to live it. We're going to show up on time. We're going to measure it by doing attendance, and we're going to reward it. The kids that are here on time every day, you guys get this. All right. If you show up, if you are, let's say you show up to the weight room 5 minutes early every day. Hey, this Friday, boys, you got pizza. It's on me. Lunch on me. Right. For me, like it was like scout team stuff. You know, hey, if you show me good behavior, like define what I want. What do I want effort to look like? All right. Define it. I want you to give me an effort in scout team that is unlike anything else. I need you to go full speed until the whistle blows. I'm going to teach you how to do it. What's it going to look like? Right. I'm going to show you what it looks like because I'm going to live it, because I'm going to go full speed. I'm going to measure your success on scout team by the amount of negative plays that you give on the offense or the amount of tackles that you have or whatever, and I'm going to reward it. Hey, guys, for every negative play that you get against our starting offense, that's one pizza for all of you. I've created a standard. I defined it. I taught it. I lived it. I measured it, and I rewarded it. If you do anything, those 5 things are things you got to live by.
That's good stuff. And of course, I have a follow-up.
As always.
Every program is not going to necessarily do it that way. So if a program skips steps, when programs skip steps, what happens?
Failure. Culture is created with conscious intent, or in contrast, by natural progression. Here's what I tell people. How many places have you? So for me, culture is just what you see and what you hear, right? I walk into a classroom, a business, a court, a weight room, a football field. What I see and what I hear, that's the culture. You know, once every semester, I have a random person who is neutral to me, no vested interest to me, come and just evaluate and audit my program, what they hear and what they see. And I ask them, I have a list of questions. You know, that's your culture. And what's going to happen is you've been in those classrooms where it's just chaos because there was no conscious intent in creating a culture of that classroom. You know what I mean? There's no standards. You're not defining anything. It's just kind of happens. And so if you forget those steps, guess what happens? Things just happen.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Listen, everybody, thank you for joining us today in the Coaches Co-op. Big thanks to today's guest, Coach Nick Kadudi, head football coach, campus athletic director at the Mothership Klein High School, for sharing his journey and his wisdom. You probably need to listen to this more than once because there's lots of gems in here. If you are walking away with new insight or new energy for your program, for your team, for your culture, then we did our job. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button, follow, subscribe to our channel for more insights from top athletic professionals like Coach Codutti. Leave us a 5-star review. If you're listening on iTunes, your ratings and reviews help other coaches find us here in the co-op. Share this show with a coach who needs to hear this wisdom. Help us grow the co-op community where coaches do what most people can't. And you see it down here on the screen. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. We'll see y'all next time in the Coaches Co-op. For Coach Kadudi, I'm Coach P. Y'all be